Has anyone ever told you not to keep all your eggs in one basket? Well, we're about to throw caution to the wind and talk about why it may sometimes be best to do just the opposite. So grab your favorite basket, all of the eggs, and let's get crazy in this episode of The Jam.
I'm Lisa.
I'm Jade.
I'm Gordon.
I'm Richie, and this is The Jam with Team Marmalead. So what is Marmalead? Is it a set of tools? Is it a resource? Is it education? Yes. Yes, it is. It's all of this. Marmalead helps you grow your sales with real shopper keywords. We use machine learning to take the guesswork out of getting found on Etsy. So if you have an Etsy shop and you want your listings to be found first by shoppers, you want them to show up in the right places where shoppers have an opportunity to buy them, then you want Marmalead. You want the keywords we have, and you want the education and the community around Marmalead to help you get there. Now you can check out Marmalead at marmalead.com, and that is marmalead.com. See you there.
On today's episode, we're going to be talking about putting all your eggs in one basket. Should you? Shouldn't you? Balance, all that jazz. So, to kick things off, Richie has a quote.
I do. So a quote from Dale Carnegie that started this whole topic here for the Jam today. So in Carnegie's talk entitled The Road to Business Success, he discussed his life as a successful business person and gave this advice. And here is the prime condition of success, the great secret. Concentrate your energy, thought, and capital exclusively upon the business in which you are engaged. Having begun on one line, resolve to fight it out on that line, to lead it, adopt every improvement, have the best machinery, and know the most about it. The concerns which fail are those which have scattered their capital, which means that they have scattered their brains also. They have investments in this or that or the other, here, there, and everywhere. Don't put all your eggs in one basket is all wrong. I tell you, put all your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket. Look around you, take notice. Men who do that do not often fail. It is easy to watch and carry the one basket. It is trying to carry too many baskets that breaks most eggs in this country.
That is an interesting quote.
Right? Now, I mean, he was a titan of industry. I don't recall exactly which era he lived through and did this, but it still pertains. In fact, we have more opportunity to be distracted and to put our minds all over the place than ever before. And so obviously he still saw that as a problem back then.
Even before social media. That's incredible.
Yeah, that is incredible. It is very different. I would say when I first read this, when you first sent it over and we were reading over it, I actually bristled at it a little bit. It's so different from the traditional, well, I don't know if it's traditional or not, but it's certainly different than the advice that I have heard growing up. And maybe that solidly places me in the millennial camp. I'm not sure, but it's definitely different, and I definitely bristled at it a little bit. So.
Yeah, we kind of had to talk through it.
Yeah, it's hard. You know, I don't know. For me personally, growing up through a recession and things of that nature, and I don't know, we've always been taught to not put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify, diversify, diversify. So I'm reading this just thinking, are you kidding me? Is this for real? I was definitely struggling with it a little bit.
I think we run into it in a lot of different specialized fields that haven't changed that much over the year too, like in medicine. I feel like it's a common thing that we complain when a doctor sends us to a specialist, and that specialist only does one thing, right? Like they're a foot doctor. And you're like, what, all you do is feet? Like, how is that a thing? You know, until you need somebody that's an expert in just foot. You need the best. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that's good. Or all you do is hearts. And you're like, yeah, but my arm hurts over there. And they're like, yeah, I'm sorry, I only do hearts over here. I don't do brains. I don't do all this other stuff. We kind of laugh at it until we need someone who's an absolute expert in it. So it makes sense. Like if that's the fight you're going to fight. Otherwise, when things get tough and you have yourself scattered all over the place, how do you know which one to give attention to? Or God forbid you have multiple things that need your attention and both of them spike in neediness at the same time. You know, things are great when they're just on autopilot. And then I can just jump over to here, put out this fire, put out that fire, right? But when the whole neighborhood catches on fire, you're going to need more fire trucks.
Yeah, I guess the other side of that to me, so I 100% understand that. And I guess I do tend to hear what you're saying. The other side of that to me, though, is that what happens when you're focusing all on one thing, kind of going back to that doctor reference, and maybe you've got something going wrong with your heart and your foot at the same time, but the heart doctor isn't talking to the foot doctor. So, you've got this lack of communication, and the heart doctor doesn't know what the foot doctor knows. The foot doctor doesn't know what the heart doctor knows. So they're prescribing you, medications that don't work with each other and all this jazz. I just feel like having a general knowledge as well can be helpful. So we need specialists, but it's like there needs to be a balance there as well. So I'm telling you what, I got fired up.
I'll tell you what, to your point, there is evidence to say that a generalist knowledge is actually very helpful. A lot of breakthroughs in just like disruptive innovations in an industry happens when somebody from a different industry enters that industry, because they bring with them things that other industry is just looking at in a silo. So you're right, they might be experts in that industry, but they're really just incrementally improving upon what that industry has always done. And then somebody from just outside knowledge looks at this and they're like, well, this thing we used to do over here in this industry that I'm an expert in, if I do that over here, I wonder if that'll work. And then it breaks them out of the incremental and it breaks them into that disruptive innovation.
That always is very interesting when people come in and start disrupting industries, and
it's like you're breaking something to fix it.
Yeah, totally.
But I do feel like when that happens, it is still somebody that's an expert in a different industry, though. I have the personality, I like to dabble in a lot of things, right? But I have to separate that between, just my personal time. This is just fun to experience different things, from like, I actually have to be productive, because it's way easier to be productive when you are, specialized in less, I'd say. If you're constantly changing it, if you're like, okay, like today we're going to use Gmail, then we're going to switch over everything to Microsoft Mail tomorrow. And then, okay, no, now we're all back on paper. We're going to overnight letters to each other. Like you'd get nothing done bouncing around like that. Like pick something, pick a system, pick a this and that. And then regardless of its flaws, move forward and be an expert in it. Like I'm going to use Google Drive better than anybody else has ever seen, instead of using 15 other things that sort of talk to each other.
A good example of this actually happening in the real world is apps on people's phones. When you have an app on your phone, it does one thing. Like your text message app isn't also playing games. They all have their distinct things that they are trying to do the best. And, if something shows up that's trying to do a billion things in one app, it's just not going to do any of them well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So finding and being a solution to one problem instead of trying to solve all the problems.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like I use Google Maps, and it's really good at giving me directions to places, but it's not really great at, sending text messages. That's not going to work. In fact, there's a lot of features in it that I don't use, because like sharing location, or like let your friends know when you're going to arrive and all this different stuff. And I see the use cases for that stuff. But really, I just want to be expert in getting me around traffic and getting me where I want to go with as little hassle as possible.
Let me jump in real quick to let you know that if you're enjoying this podcast, you should definitely check out our free 3-part mini-series about Etsy SEO. It's designed to take you from what is Etsy SEO to an example of an efficient Marmalead workflow. Check it out at marmalead.com/jam2020.
So just to sort of bring this back to the Etsy seller perspective, a lot of people out there, or a question that I get in success a lot is, should I break off and start another shop? Should I have 3 shops, one that focuses on each of the different kinds of products I sell? How do you think this applies for the Etsy seller of doing several shops, or sort of sticking to one shop and maybe just concentrating on the one? Is there any advice that you might have there?
Yeah, even inside of one shop, it's easy to get pulled in so many different directions. You're mentioning, opening a different shop. There's like, should you be focusing on redoing your photos? Should you be focusing on your Pinterest efforts? What about Instagram? There's so many different things that you can be spending your time on as an Etsy seller. So to me, when Richie's reading this quote, that's immediately where my mind goes, is how many different directions you get pulled in as an Etsy seller.
And what is the best use of your time, and figuring that out? Because honestly, if you're, starting a blog, starting your own separate website to sell things on, trying to set up a mailing list, working on Pinterest, doing your Google ads, like none of those things are getting the attention that they really deserve to be able to be successful. And so what you really need to do is step back and figure out, well, what is the best use of my time, and where should I be spending the majority of it?
And if you have, and those are all different activities. Now, if you have multiple shops, right, then are those all different companies? Do they have different sets of books? You have to have different social medias. And then, think about, okay, I'm going to run a promotion for the holidays and I'm going to send out an email. Okay, so now do I have to write 3 different emails to send out to people? So they each have their own brand, they each have their own everything. And then what happens if I have overlap in customers? Now these customers are getting 3 of the same emails or 2 of the same emails from my shop. And there's that much energy in like, okay, wait, who are you again? I know this shop. Who's this shop? Okay, yeah, that's right. I bought soap from them one time. That's right. It looks really similar to this shop. And people don't really tie it together all that well. But all those activities you mentioned, now you have 3 different message inboxes to deal with. You got to switch back and forth on Etsy to check out, okay, all the shipments on here, all the shipments from here. Okay, I go to the UPS store, USPS, and now, okay, which company am I shipping from? Now I've got 3, but yeah, it's hard. Each of every one of these activities is hard. Big companies have specialists in email marketing. They have specialists in photography. They have specialists in all these different things. And as a small shop, you're trying to do really well at it, but you're still just one person. And if you hire somebody else, well, are they as good or better than you are at that? Or maybe you're lucky enough to have partnered with somebody that maybe is, but still just 2. You don't have a team of 10, 20, 30, 40. Maybe you do. Some shops will. A lot of them we talk to don't. And if they do, they're more on like production side. So we're talking about people outside of even production, because if you're trying to, actually hand make stuff and push all this product that takes a lot of time too.
Yeah, we hear that a lot. That's something that I hear a lot. People will write in and say, is there anybody that I can hire from your team to do this work for me, because I have to focus on production. I can't focus on all these other things. So it really is easy, especially if you're just a one-man show, to get spread thin really easily. It's just interesting to me, because so much of me wants to say balance, balance, balance. You gotta focus on balance. But just like what you guys are saying, when you're a one-man show, sometimes you really do sort of have to throw everything at one task at a time, and sort of just go hard at that one task, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next, because there's nobody else to pick up the slack.
What if you do this? You have your Etsy shop, and then you perfect your listings to as good as they're going to get, right? Your photos are on point, your descriptions are selling, your conversion rate is doing awesome, you're targeting the keywords that have great conversion rates, things are good, right? Well, how do you scale from there? Well, then you start throwing ad dollars at it, right? You put more people in the top of the funnel there through that, and you grow it there. Because if you're spending the time to get really good at that, right, you might double your conversion rate. Well, you just doubled the amount of sales for the same number of people, which can definitely happen, because if you're not fully optimized, then you have a lot of room to grow there. Probably a lot more than, okay, I've heard that, MailChimp has something going on over here. I will go open an account and go through all those hoops to set that up, right? Because that's not easy. That's going to take a lot of your time that you're now not spending on those other things. I think that you get greater gains. You have to take that into personal consideration, but I think you really would get bigger gains by perfecting what you've got going on than to jumping a new territory, which may or may not work.
So are we basically saying that we think it's better to focus on one shop at a time and scale from there? Or is that kind of like official advice?
I would say focus on the things that you think you can be best at. And the other things, if you have extra time and it's fun and you enjoy it, then do those. But otherwise, I'm concerned that you'd get burned out by trying to create too complex of a system. Even if you like systems, I think that you're going to burn yourself out if you try to make it too complicated, if you do too much.
Yep. I would say if you're not having success with one shop, opening a second shop probably isn't going to help anything at all. And if you are having success with one shop, then just be aware, like Richie's saying, that opening a second shop is going to demand a whole lot more time. And there's a chance that it could even derail your first shop.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. I just tend to think it's going to look a little bit different for each seller. But yeah,
Right.
I totally understand the putting all your eggs in one basket thing more than I did at the beginning of the conversation. So thanks for the enlightenment. I was really chewing on that quote at the beginning. It was funny. Jade and I were kind of arguing back and forth about it, and then Richie got in on it too. So it's been interesting to talk it out for sure.
It is. And I realized that, yeah, I mean, it's going to be different. And as a shop, it's different than, somebody like when I brought up a physician, or if, you're talking to like an accountant or something like that, right? Like, well, yeah. So like, what else do you do? Oh yeah. I'm a real estate agent, accountant, massage therapist, stockbroker, like whatever. You're like, wait a minute, what? Oh yeah. Like I dabble in a lot of things, here's my card with 15 different things on it. And you're going to be like, yeah, I might check out an accountant that just like really loves accounting. Like, what do you do in your spare time? I like to read the CPA Journal of Accountancy instead of watching TV. It's like, yeah, you're my guy. So I think we do also like specialization. Just the idea of it makes people kind of nervous because we're like, well, what happens if that basket falls apart and all the eggs break? Well, I think he addresses that in there. You don't just have the one basket, ignore it, right? Look around, take notice, maintain that basket. Take good care of that basket. Make sure that thing doesn't, get all rusted out. I'm not sure what kind of basket would get rusted out, but obviously it's an iron basket.
Yeah, maybe part of the issue with my thought process at the beginning of the conversation was that I sort of was looking at being specialized the same way as being a little bit closed off to everything else that's happening around you, so that you don't recognize trends, that you're not seeing what's going on around outside your basket because you're so focused on that basket, when that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. And that wasn't necessarily what he was saying. He was just saying, make sure that you're doing what's in front of you well. But part of doing what's in front of you well means paying attention to what's going on around you, so that you don't drop that one basket and bust all your eggs. So a little growth in my thought process for the day.
I think of one-hit wonders when we talk about that, right? And you mentioned like a younger generation and everything. I remember, everyone likes to diss on one-hit wonders like Vanilla Ice, right? Like that's someone we can all remember. And first, I feel like there's this kind of like ingrained societal fear of being a one-hit wonder. I did this one thing, I did it well, and then it fizzled out, and then you're never heard of again. And I don't know when that happened, like when that started happening. That's just when I remember is some of those. But in our parents' and grandparents' generation, that might still have been a thing. But I feel like every generation likes to think that they're kind of different, right? But I mean, we're all people. We all have the same kind of underlying fears, right? Like loss of control. You want acceptance. You got the whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And we supposedly all follow that pretty well.
What you guys have been talking about is so true, but at the same time, I think Richie and you and I had talked about this, how you can definitely get to a balance. You don't have to just have all your eggs in one basket, but do exactly what you guys are talking about. Assess where you are. And then if you feel like, okay, I can, got this new basket, I'm going to put an egg in and start to slowly see how that goes. Like, there's a balance. You don't have to have all your eggs in one basket, but you definitely don't want so many eggs in so many baskets that none of them are getting the attention they need. So maybe it is focusing on one or two things. And so, okay, you got two baskets. There's a balance between the two. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to what you guys were saying. Do what you're good at and stay there and until you're solid there, and then start to branch out. But don't branch out if you haven't really got
a hold of what you're doing. And I think too, the other thing to remember is to not branch out out of desperation, because I think a lot of times, you can see Etsy sellers like, okay, it's not going the way I want it to in this shop, so I'm gonna start another one. And now it's not going the way I want it to in this shop, so I'm going to start another one and another one and another one. And pretty soon it's out of control, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to ever in any business start something out of desperation because what you're working on right then isn't working. Figure out the problem.
Yeah, slow down.
Yeah, slow down, take a breath, figure out what is going wrong in the basket that you're working on, and then go from there.
Yes, make sure you're in a good mindset to make good decisions. Because desperation is not a good good time to be doing that. And as far as there being a balance, I mean, anybody selling on Etsy, they probably weren't born selling on Etsy. So they did make some sort of I'm going to pick up another basket, right? Because if you left a job or you left, whatever you were doing before you were selling on Etsy was picking up another basket. But hopefully when you did that, you didn't go all in and bet the farm, like, well, this better work. Otherwise, we're going to lose everything. Like, that's not a good way to do it. So if you do want to test things, part of the balance could be, look, I'm going to dip my toes in this. I'm just going to kind of test the waters in just a little bit. See if, is it going to work? Do I like it? Because sometimes, even if something works, if you're going to hate it and be miserable, that's not going to last either.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Doing exactly what you did in the beginning, I think it's very rare that an Etsy seller opens a shop and is immediately full-time making a ton of money. It's a very rare story.
That doesn't happen.
So you go back to the beginning of where you started. You slowly started this side hustle that maybe grew into what is now full-time, and you do that process over again. You don't do what you're talking about and just go, well, I'm betting the whole farm, or doing so many different things that I can't handle it.
Yeah. This is one of those discussions that I would love to hear what, folks who are listening, Etsy sellers who are listening, have to say, or what their personal stories are. It just sort of, wherever this gets posted in the comments section, I hope that it blows up, because I want to know.
For sure. We definitely want your comments. So let us know. This will be posted on the blog. So drop those comments below and let us know what your story is and how it's going for you and what your thoughts are on this. Because
do you tend towards putting all of your eggs in one basket? Have you had lots of success with tons of different baskets?
Or have you started a ton of different things and had to scale back? Right. And are you now kind of what we're talking about, saying, okay, I'm just going to focus on this one or two or three things?
Yeah, and please say why. We really want to hear the thought processes. Share those out there. There's no right or wrong. It's just experiences, but the thought process is the truly interesting part to me.